everyone, it's Destiny, and I'm going to see if my 2-month-old account is able to beat Genshin Impact, specifically beating Spiral Abyss. Will the characters I've invested into be enough to beat Spiral Abyss, or will I have to try again in another month or even a few months from now? And before we get into today's video, I would love to know one of your favorite characters from Genshin Impact. For me, I have been absolutely loving Flins, and also if you'd like to see more Genshin Impact content from me, consider subscribing to my channel, leave a like to support the video, and now let's get straight into it. To begin, I thought I can go over what characters I have been investing in so far and what sort of teams I have. Starting with the damage dealers on my account, I have Mavuika, Mulan, Lauma, and then lastly Flins. I ended up pulling for each of these characters as their banners came out, starting with Mavuika and with the latest banner being Flins. Plus, each of these banners had 4 stars that I wanted for my account. For example, Kuki on Lauma's banner, Sucrose and Aino on Flynn's banner, and so on. As for my supports, I have invested a bit into Sitlali, Bennett, Yansan, Kuki, Xingqiu, and I recently acquired Sucrose and Aino. The most invested in support that I do have would be Kuki, as she's used alongside my Lauma, but she can also work as a nice electro character alongside Flins, which gives me electro resonance, plus provides me with healing. I unfortunately do not have a Nefer, but I was able to get pretty lucky on my Flins pulls, so we do have a bit more investment on Flins in particular. As for my teams, I can use some characters on multiple teams, for example, Kuki either on a Lauma team or a Flins team, but because Kuki is used on both, I likely am not going to be able to use my Lauma team on one side and then Flins team on another side of the Abyss. Instead, I would have to use Mavuika or Mulan, and use either my Lauma team or my Flins team on the other side of the Abyss. This should be a decent game plan though, with the amount of characters I have. For my Mavuika team, I would be using Mavuika as my main damage dealer alongside Yansan, Bennett, and then lastly Sitlali. I can put Mulan somewhere on the team if I'd like to use her alongside Mavuika. As for my Lauma team, this would consist of Lauma herself, Kuki, Fischl, and lastly Xingqiu. As for Flins, Flins is the main damage dealer, with the other characters on the team being Kuki, Aino, and Sucrose. While I don't have too many team options, I still think I'll be able to progress decently in Spiral Abyss. First things first though, we actually have to unlock Spiral Abyss, which wasn't too difficult to do, and I went inside this cool rift to get to the little area where Spiral Abyss is. And now that we're here, let's begin with seeing just how far a newer account can do in Abyss. For the first couple floors, they were very easy for my Mavuika, as one burst would pretty much defeat anything in my way, just like this. Once I got to floor 5, now I had to begin using 2 teams, which I ended up going with my Mavuika team and my Flins team. And these 2 teams were able to easily handle floor 5 through floor 8, and clearing these floors resulted in a lot of goodies, such as Mora, EXP books, Primo gems, and so on. This actually allowed me to level up my Flins a bit while going through this challenge. And now that I've beaten the first 8 floors, I unlocked floors 9 through 12, which I knew this is where the real challenge is about to begin. For floor 9, I went with my Flins team on the first half and Mavuika team on the second half, which was going great until I got to Chamber 3 second half, and this horse creature was immune to some of my attacks at times, and my damage also felt greatly reduced in comparison to normal, and it just wasn't going too great. My Flins team though was able to clear the first half quickly for Chamber 3, so I still had a good amount of time for Chamber 3 second half with my Mavuika team, and thankfully I was still able to clear this chamber within the 3-star time limit, and I was able to successfully get all of the stars for floor 9. So aside from that mistake on my end for my team when it comes to the second half of Chamber 3, we were doing pretty good so far. For floor 10, I went with the same game plan for my teams, but I put Mavuika for first half and Flins for second half. I was able to get all of the stars for floor 10 as well, and I felt on top of the world at this moment and was feeling very confident for floor 11 and 12. That is, until I challenged them. Floor 11 did require me to restart a couple of times during Chamber 1 and 2. I had numerous cases of not avoiding enemy attacks in times, which was definitely my fault, as I maybe just wasn't as locked in as I should have been. So I tried to focus more on the enemy patterns to have a better feel of when to dodge, as I was a bit unfamiliar with some of the enemies I was facing and was able to clear it, and things went pretty smoothly for Chamber 3 as well. Aside from a couple of restarts I had to do due to dying from enemy attacks or potentially missing an attack, for example a burst attack, I would say overall it went pretty decently. I upgraded Flins a little bit more and I was feeling confident again for floor 12, which was an absolute mistake because floor 12 had me on the verge of actually crashing out. My teams remained the same with Flins first half, Mavuika second half, but we're just gonna go over this. Floor 12 Chamber 1 made me suffer a bit because of this guy, the cactus. I was a bit unfamiliar with how to fight the cactus at first and wasn't too sure how to find out who was the real cactus and who was the imposter cactus hats, which I did figure out eventually. I have to look for this little face on the hat. After figuring this out, I did want to try to get a shorter clear time on the first half, because if I take too long with the hat phase, I would lose out on too much time for the second half. But before I restart the first half, I wanted to try the second half just to get a feel for it. And this hydro enemy was the death of me. Literally, I didn't know what to do. It had a bunch of HP, or at least noticeably more HP than the previous enemies I faced in the prior floors, and it would one-shot me. I tried asking one of my friends for help and they suggested to not use Bennett's burst against this enemy. I had two challenges now for Chamber 1. Defeat the cactus fast enough for a decent amount of time for the second half, and for the second half, try my best to sustain my team and ensure that none of my characters go down, since this is literally the first chamber and I still have 2 more to go after this. This took me about 45 minutes in order to complete, and I really wanted to see if I could complete this challenge or not, which is primarily just beating floor 12. So I did move on to Chamber 2. Chamber 2's first half was also frustrating, as the Radiant Moonfly would hit my characters pretty hard, and I was just not a fan of fighting it once it uses its wings, where it literally shoots fire-like attacks at you, as well as its other attacks. So one of my runs, I tried staying as far away as possible from this enemy in an effort to avoid its attacks. This enemy was not a fun time, but staying away from it did work, as I was able to clear this half. But unfortunately, I did not have much time for the second half, as I spent a lot of time running away. I was able to beat Chamber 2 second half though, but I was a couple seconds off from a 2-star clear. Now Chamber 3. This is where I just wasn't sure anymore if I could actually do this challenge. The first side was a bit problematic at first, but once I got a hang of the mechanics, it wasn't too much of an issue as long as I didn't get hit too much or mess up my rotation. This did take me a couple of attempts, but I was able to get to the second half of Chamber 3, which was by far the worst chamber for me, at least for the second half. The first wave of enemies weren't too bad to deal with. I did notice though, if they got too separated, then I would waste a lot of time trying to attack them. But the main issue was wave 2, as I had to fight these 3 enemies right here. And I wasn't really aware of their attack patterns at first, and this resulted in me dying a lot. I wasn't sure if it was preferable to group them together, or maybe fight one individually at a time. My goal for this chamber wasn't to get the stars just yet, but more so to beat the floor itself for the purpose of my challenge, and also just to see if I could do it. This took me over an hour between Flins sometimes dying on the first half, or the enemies in the second half defeating my Mavuika, which if this happened, this would prevent me from beating that chamber. I had much more difficulty on the second half, and I wish that when I restarted Chamber 3, I could pick if I only wanted to restart the Mavuika half, which is the second half, rather than restarting the first half and the second half and having to beat up this duck for over an hour, which this itself also needed occasional restarts if I messed up somewhere in the fight. And I was also doing this at around midnight or 1 a.m, so I was beginning to get pretty tired, but I still had to ensure that I could lock in to defeat this chamber. I was dedicated. I didn't want to give up. And I knew even if I couldn't get the stars for this chamber, I believe I can at least beat it. I was getting more familiar to the boss patterns, and with countless restarts and about an hour and 30 minutes later, I was making good progress. During one of my runs, when the enemies spawned in, I tried attacking them a bit, and once they began to attack me, I immediately ran away, since I knew if I took too many hits, I would have to restart again. I tried focusing on the enemy with the cryo-like abilities first as much as I could, as I noticed this enemy was very problematic during the second wave. I would try to save a burst attack when they would unleash a powerful attack in an effort to avoid damage for that attack, and while I was making decent progress, Bennett went down. I was considering restarting, but I wanted to see if I could beat this, even without Bennett. I was a bit worried now though, as I didn't have my main source of healing on this team, and I also unfortunately lost Yeon-san along the way as well. I got a bit too greedy for trying to get more energy for her while they were all grouped together, and now I was very worried. I only had Sitlali and Mavuika left. I tried to focus as much as possible to avoid their attacks, but I wanted to keep this run going because this is the most progress I've gotten so far. So I tried to focus as much as possible to avoid their attacks and not lose Sitlali or Mavuika, because if I lost either one of them, I would not be able to clear this. There were a lot of moments where I was internally screaming because of how close some of these attacks were to hitting me, but Mavuika's bike helped a lot with quickly avoiding certain attacks. I was able to take down Galloping Frost, and I only had about 2 minutes and 54 seconds on the clock remaining. While I felt a sense of relief of being able to finally beat this enemy, the battle wasn't over yet. I knew deep down though, I could do this. One of the other enemies was already low on HP, and then all that would remain afterward is the Mask of Terror. I heavily focused on beating the enemy with the lower amount of HP, and with 2 minutes and 20 seconds remaining, that enemy was now defeated. We only had one more enemy to go, which is the Mask of Terror enemy, and 2 minutes remaining. Thankfully, I found this enemy far easier to avoid the attacks of, so I focused on attacking this enemy as safely as I could, and we were making great progress on lowering its HP. At around 1 minute and 25 seconds remaining, I got Sitlali's burst, then swapped into Mavuika for her burst, did a couple of donuts, and we did it. With only 1 minute and 18 seconds remaining, we were able to beat Floor 12, Chamber 3. And while we didn't get any stars, I was happy I was at least able to defeat this floor. I do believe with more invested builds, we could definitely get multiple stars, and I'm going to be trying the upcoming Spiral Abyss as well, just to see how my teams do when that releases. Overall though, I'm very happy with being able to defeat Floor 12, and as a result, I was able to defeat Spiral Abyss. My next goal will be, of course, to get more stars, but for right now, I think this is pretty good progress for a newer account. As for my builds, here's how my characters are looking for this challenge. We're primarily just going over the characters that I use throughout this challenge, which would primarily just be my Mavuika team and my Flins team. The primary characters I would say I've invested the most into at the time of recording this video is Mavuika and Flins themselves. Kuki has a nice amount of investment though, since she is a primary character on my Lauma team. But for my builds, in all honesty, a lot of my builds kind of suck because I don't really have too much materials to level up my artifacts a bunch. So I heavily focused mainly on my damage dealers, as if I'm not doing any damage, then I more than likely wouldn't even be able to get pretty far in Abyss to begin with. So I tried focusing a good amount on Flins, good amount on Mavuika herself was the very first limited banner I went for. And yeah, so this is just how my characters are looking. Definitely not the greatest, but I definitely think with way more investment over time, I feel like we'll be able to conquer Abyss without any issues in the future. Or at least that's what I'm hoping for. But yeah, I hope you all did enjoy this video. If you want to see more Genshin content from me, consider subscribing, leaving a like to support today's video, and I hope you all have a great one. Bye bye!